That grave was never meant to be opened. It had been sealed since 1871, and people swore they'd never even touch it. But when the construction crew started drilling under that old cemetery, the first thing that came up from the ground, it wasn't blood. It was something else. Red, thick, dried water. And from that day on, people in town started to change. But the first person to disappear was my little brother. It happened during my shift on a construction site where an old graveyard was being cleared to make way for a new public park. It was on the outskirts of a small rural town in Massachusetts. My younger brother, Danny, worked there too, part of the drilling crew. Always curious about everything, and he was the first one to bring up that grave. One afternoon, after lunch break, he sent me a picture. A grave, old, rotting, and something was seeping out from the side. Red. Like rusted water coming up from deep underground, or something else. I texted back. "Stop messing with it. Just tell the foreman." His only reply: "Too late." Danny never came home after that. Police said he might have fallen into a ditch or wandered into the woods. But that site was fully monitored, CCTV, motion sensors. They searched every inch, and still, no trace of him. Not even a footprint. Only one thing was found. A hard hat, soaked in red water. And that water was now a darker shade than before. At first glance, it looked like oxidized sewer runoff. But when I took a sample and sent it to a lab, the results were disturbing. The lab tech told me, "This isn't water. It's old human blood, but the cells are still moving. As if it's alive." That's when I remembered. An old local story. In the 1870s, on that same graveyard, an insane asylum burned to the ground. Some patients were burned alive inside. They say one of them, Abraham Harlow, swore until his final breath that he was already dead. But his soul was still alive beneath his grave. When they buried him, that night, the strongest winds the town had ever seen tore through the streets. And from that day forward, that grave was never opened again. After what happened to Danny, the worksite shut down. One worker was found sleepwalking into the woods. They found him the next day. Just his body, with no face. Another man fell directly into a drill shaft. When they pulled him out, red water poured from his mouth. But inside his body, there were no organs. It was completely hollow, like just an empty shell. I knew then. Danny's disappearance wasn't normal. I went back to the site without telling anyone. It was 2 a.m. The place was empty, just the wind, an old iron fence, and that grave. Still seeping, drop by drop. When I stepped closer, the soil above it was soft. And when I brushed some of it away, it didn't release air. It was warm, like the breath of something alive underneath. I ran. But the next day, Danny called me. His name lit up my phone. The voice was exactly his. But all he said was, "Don't dig deeper. She's not done feeding." In the background, I heard another sound. Chains, screaming, and the faint chime of a bell. Then the call ended. After that, I couldn't sleep. Everything in my house seemed normal, but from under my bathroom mirror. Every night, I could hear a faint, wet gurgling sound. And when I opened the pipe, a trickle of red water dripped out. That's when it hit me. This curse isn't just trapped in that grave. It's spreading anywhere the water goes. And the town's water lines all run straight under that site. I went everywhere that water had gone. I couldn't tell if this red water was just seeping through, or if something was using it to carve its way forward. I first went into the old storm drain tunnels, the kind you find running under old East Coast towns. They used to only have sewer rats down there. But now, I saw something else. Something wrapped in a thin membrane, soaked in red. And when it moved, it made a sound, like human bones clinking together underwater. The city's water department engineers were called in. They told me, "This is contamination, probably old chemical waste from the abandoned factories." But chemicals don't grow bones. And whatever that thing was, it was forming into something inside the drains. Like someone was trying to bring it back to life. When I got home, the basement in my Massachusetts townhouse was wet. I was shocked it was never in a flood zone. And then I smelled it. Blood, and something that made it hard to breathe. In one corner of the basement, there was seepage behind the concrete wall. I took my cordless drill, and inside was a small hollow cavity. And inside that cavity, I found photographs of my little brother Danny, and of me, with one sentence written across them: "Return what was taken." I went straight to the old chapel by the graveyard, where that coffin had been dug up. Now, state police had put up fencing and big "no trespassing" federal property signs. But I broke through the chain link fence and went inside. I saw the same red water trail. Only now, it didn't look like water anymore. It looked alive. It slithered along the path. Thick, red, sticky. And every few feet, a name was written in blood. One of them said, "Eli Turner." He was my next-door neighbor, who'd gone missing 2 weeks ago. People thought he'd just moved to Florida with his dad. But now I knew. He had been taken by the red water too. The next morning, when I woke up, something was written on my bedroom window. In the condensation. "You opened it. Now feed it." I was losing my mind. I pulled every news clipping I could find. Dug through city archives, Boston public records. That's where I found an old entry, dated 1871. A woman's name, Rebecca Lorne. She left a statement in court saying, "If my grave is ever opened, a red poison will spread through the ground, and it will enter every body that carries grief or fear." Her corpse wasn't in that grave. Only that red water. Water that had only seeped through the ground. But now, it was entering people. I went to Worcester General Hospital for blood tests. The doctor said, "There's something in your blood. Red cells we don't understand." They tried to admit me, but I ran. That night, a video came to my phone from an unknown number. It was footage of my basement. The camera moved slowly, until the last frame, where I saw my brother. Only, his face wasn't his anymore. It was mine. And that's when I realized, the red water didn't just come from the grave. It's inside every body now. And the first one to open it is always the first to be taken. That night, I locked my bedroom door, turned my phone off, and sat in the corner with a blanket pulled over me. But deep inside, I could feel it. The water wasn't just outside anymore. There was movement inside me. Like something had been placed into my bloodstream. Like with every heartbeat, it was growing. By morning, my eyes had changed color. When I looked in the mirror, the whites of my eyes were tinted red. Not like broken capillaries, but like water had filled them. I screamed. I ran out of the house. There was only one place I could go. Back to the grave. The graveyard was still fenced off. But I found a way inside. The red water was back at the surface. But it wasn't liquid anymore. It was breathing. I saw something moving inside the grave. Like a spine, like a backbone forming inside red gel. and it was taking my shape. That's when I understood. The thing in my basement. It wasn't my brother. It was my duplicate. Made by the water. The red water copied faces. And then it replaced the original. I saw only one way out. I pulled out my lighter and set the water on fire. But the water absorbed the flames. It didn't burn. It cried, like it could feel pain, but couldn't die. Then another face rose up in front of me. It looked like me, but older, faded, and it only said one thing: "You're not the first. You're just next." I ran. I cut through the woods, ran all night, and when I got back into town, there were missing person posters everywhere. Eli Turner, Sarah Wills, and a new one, mine. They were saying I was missing, but I was alive. When I went back to my house, I saw myself sitting inside. Same shirt, same face, eating dinner with my mom, like everything was normal. But that wasn't me. That was what the red water had made. I screamed. I pounded on the door, but no one saw me. I couldn't prove who I was. I had already been erased. That night, I looked toward the graveyard one last time, and from inside the grave, a face was rising again. But this time, it wasn't mine. It was someone new. And that's when I understood. The red water never stops. It only changes faces. And every face comes at a price. If your face isn't in the water today, it might be tomorrow. And when it is, remember, even after you're gone, you're still sitting somewhere. In someone else's life. Inside someone else's body. My dad passed away in 2020. And when I flew back to New York to sell his house, I thought it would be simple. An empty place, some paperwork, then hand the keys to the realtor. But while I was cleaning the basement, there was something I'd never seen before. An old, wooden-framed mirror. It was tucked away in the corner. Dusty, but the glass was perfectly clear. And the strangest thing was, when I stood in front of it, it didn't show my reflection. Instead, it showed another man. Same face, but there was something different in his eyes. Like it wasn't me at all. But I was looking at him. And he was looking right back at me. I covered the mirror. But later that night, when I went downstairs, the cloth had been pulled off. And at the bottom of the glass, scratched in, "You found me. Now finish it." I thought maybe I was hallucinating. But when I tried to leave the house, the basement door locked from the inside. And from within, a voice whispered, "You're not the first, but you might be the last." The voice, it wasn't mine, but it came from right next to my ear. I froze. The basement door slammed shut behind me. Rattling the handle was useless. It had locked from the inside. My hands were shaking. But I switched on my flashlight, swept the entire basement. There was no sign of anyone. Only one thing stood there, that same mirror. And in front of the mirror, there was a chair. For the first time, I noticed it. That chair hadn't been there before. On the chair sat an old, leather-bound diary. And on top of it, a note read, "It's not always the one who sees that leaves. Sometimes it's the one who's seen." I picked up the diary and opened to the first page. Everything was handwritten. And the first sentence? If you are reading this, it's already too late. My throat went dry. I pressed gently against the door, still locked. I couldn't tell if I was alone in the house anymore. The single basement bulb was flickering, and with each flicker, I swore I saw a different face in the mirror. When I focused harder, I realized the mirror was showing another room. That room was nothing like this basement. It was darker. On the floor were strange white chalk markings, like some kind of ritual had been drawn. And then, a shadow passed inside the mirror. But since I was standing there, the shadow passed right behind me. I spun around instantly, no one was there. But when I looked back into the mirror, words were being traced on the inside of the glass, as if by an unseen finger. Turn around. I stood frozen for a few seconds. When I finally found the courage to turn, I noticed, near the right corner of the mirror, a small stack of papers. Yellowed pages, and one name written over and over again. Caleb M. Rutherford, 1926. Caleb M. Rutherford, missing, August 13th. Last seen in this house's basement. I thought maybe I was hallucinating, or that this was some elaborate prank. But then I started flipping through the back pages of the diary. One page read, "The mirror doesn't reflect, it remembers. Everyone who stared long enough left something behind." And underneath, names like a list of signatures. Caleb M. Donna T. Jeremy L. And a name that was painfully familiar. Nathan K. It wasn't the first time I'd seen that name. It was my father's. I never knew my dad had a dark history with this house. They said his death was from a sudden heart attack. But when I saw his face, it was twisted in sheer terror. Now I understood. It wasn't just death. He'd been running from something. When I looked back at the mirror, that ritual room was clearer than ever. Now, a black-robed figure was standing there, staring directly at me from inside the glass. And in its hand was my wallet. I patted my pocket. The wallet was gone. The figure in the mirror smiled and wrote again, "You're already inside." The basement bulb blew out completely. Darkness swallowed everything. When I flicked on my phone's flashlight, the mirror was right in front of me. But it wasn't a mirror anymore. It was a door. And from behind me, that same voice whispered, "Once you're inside, it's not just memories that stay, people do, too." Those words were still echoing in my ears. And right in front of me, the mirror had become a doorway. No frame, no glass. Just a dark, jagged opening, like someone had sliced through the air, and on the other side, another world waited. I thought about the basement door, but when I turned to look, it wasn't there anymore. Only darkness. Just that mirror-like gate, and the diary, its pages flipping on their own. One page stopped. It had only 2 words written on it. "Step in." My mind screamed run, but my feet wouldn't move. It was like some other gravity was pulling me forward. I took a step toward the opening. And the moment my foot crossed that threshold, everything changed. The cold concrete floor was now soft dirt. Around me, the same chalk lines and ritual symbols, but now they were glowing, as if someone had breathed life into them. The air in this room carried a strange, ancient scent: mildew, dried blood, and something I couldn't name. And the first thing I saw, another mirror. Exactly the same shape. But this time, I wasn't looking at my own reflection. It was another me, and his eyes were locked on mine. Not like a window, like I was meeting another version of myself. And that other me was smiling. Behind me, footsteps. When I turned, the black-robed figure was there. Tall, almost touching the ceiling, and in its hand, it held a photograph of my dad. He looked maybe 12 years old in it, same face, but something different in the eyes. The figure pushed the photo into the mirror, and instantly, the image swirled out of sight. Then the figure spoke. "Time isn't just a straight line. Here, every turn is remembered." I asked, "What are you?" It only replied, "I am what they became the first time they opened this mirror." Then it reached forward and slid a small box toward me. I opened the box. Inside was an audio cassette. Written on the tape, "Caleb, final session, 1982. The same Caleb from the earlier diary pages. There was just one problem. I didn't have a cassette player. But the second I picked it up, that same mirror, the one that hadn't shown my reflection, came alive. A voice began to play through it. The audio warped and cracked. And then a broken, terrified voice began to speak. "It's been 43 days. He comes every night, steps out of the mirror, and searches my face for something. He says, until I bring it back. I can't leave." A woman's scream broke through the static, then silence. The mirror went blank again. In that silence, I could hear only my own breathing, and then, the shadow. The one that had copied me earlier, slowly returned. But it wasn't me anymore. It was Nathan. My father. The way he stood, the way he moved. I knew instantly. It was my father's reflection, but younger. He stepped closer, stood right in front of me, and said, "The man you call Dad is long gone. I am what he became. You're not just his son, you're the next reflection." The mirror shifted again, revealing another scene, the hospital room where my father died. But he wasn't alone. The same figure stood at the foot of his bed. And in its eyes, the chalk symbols were burning. Everything around me began to collapse. I wasn't in that room anymore, or in front of the mirror, just surrounded by voices, thousands of voices. And one phrase repeating over and over. "What lives in the mirror isn't your reflection, it's your past. And when you try to understand it, you get lost in it." I screamed, but no sound came out. That's when I realized. This wasn't a mirror, it was a maze, one you could only escape by accepting your past. But I always believed I was alone. Now I knew. I'd been dead for a long time. And this place had pulled me back. I understood now. This wasn't the ghost of an accident. This was another world, where I'd already died. And now, it wanted me back. When my eyes opened, I was somewhere else. The basement mirror was now just a liquid surface, but I was on the inside. There was no sense of time. No night, no day. Only the sounds, low whispers, echoes of screaming, and sometimes, my own voice, but played backward. I wandered through every corner, saw every reflection. Everywhere, there was some version of me. Sometimes a young Nathan, sometimes like my dad, sometimes a version that had never even been alive. They all said the same thing to me. "Until you bring back the memory, you can't go home." Then I remembered the cassette. Final session, Caleb, 1982. Inside the mirror world, I found the tape again. This time, it started playing on its own. A new voice came through, not Caleb's. It was my father's. "If you're hearing this, it means you've reached the place I came to 43 years ago. Time here isn't straight, every son repeats his father's past, until someone breaks the cycle. You're the one who can break it." The voice faded, and the mirror's surface began to ripple. This time, on the other side, I saw the basement again. The bookshelf, the diary, everything back in its place. I had one chance: stay here forever, or cross the mirror and leave it all behind. I ran. And the moment I passed through, I collapsed onto the basement floor. The mirror was shut. The diary had burned to ash. And the voices were gone. I got up and ran, out of the basement, out of the house. For the first time, everything felt so normal. But when I sat in my car and adjusted the rearview mirror, there was something in my eyes. Something that wasn't there before. I left town, moved to another city. Tried to forget everything. But every night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., in the mirror of my bedroom, another reflection rises. It looks at me. But I don't move. Because it isn't me. And when I step out of sight, that reflection keeps moving. And slowly, smiles. The mirror shattered. But the version of me trapped inside is still alive somewhere. And the next time you look in a mirror, I might be staring back from your eyes.